Oh, hey, I'm glad you're here. And I'm glad we're back. Welcome to Season 2 of VHUs. I, for one, am so happy the break is over, and we're going to start rolling out brand new episodes every Tuesday, featuring a new guest, discussing a new film, sharing stories from their life, and I just am over the moon with this season. Coming up, we also have some changeover in the website. It's going to get a little facelift there, making it easier for you to interact with us. So feel free to recommend films, ask about films. If you're not already on our Twitter, it's VHS_podcast, I think. Our Instagram is vh.us. We will also soon have a Patreon if you would like to support the website and the podcast. That would be fantastic. We love working with small independent artists and commissioning original artwork for you for every episode. So there are costs we accrue through the podcast, but we want to put out the best quality podcast we can for you because we value your time. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your comments, ratings, and reviews. Great support happening on Twitter, which is fantastic. Wonderful podcast community out there. And I think that pretty much covers most of the new things right now. So that's the good news. Which brings us to today's episode. The movie is switching channels, the guest is a reporter, and this is VHUs. Hello, and welcome to VHUs. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall, and I'm joined in the studio by Nina Mehlhaf, who is a news anchor as well as a reporter.
Hello, thank you for having me, Dirk.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Did I say that right? Nina Mehlhaf.
Mehlhaf, kind of like,
Mehlhaf.
don't hassle the Hoff.
Got it. Mehlhaf. Up top, what is the difference between an anchor and a reporter?
An anchor is a person that you see in the news studio, sitting or standing behind a desk that you repeatedly see throughout the full newscast. That's tossing to stories, talking to reporters, bantering with the weather person. Yeah. And a reporter is the person that's going out and spending the time during the day on one story, doing the interviews, and then you see them live out in the field.
Okay.
Typically.
Got it. So it's like, it's not just an inside-outside thing.
No, we have often reporters kind of showing, their stories in the newsroom or wherever, but they typically work on
like a
one
feature?
topic, one story, and can kind of spend the whole day working on that, interviewing several people, getting, the facts and all that stuff, and writing it themselves.
Sure. And
putting it together and presenting it themselves.
And
then the anchor would come in and kind of read through all the other news copy that maybe doesn't have a dedicated reporter to it, and kind of present the newscast, from the studio.
Right. So the anchor is the person who gets the copy, and the reporter has the option of writing their own copy?
The reporter always writes their own story. Always, yes.
Oh, wow.
Anchors write stories themselves as well. They're just kind of the shorter ones that don't have, another staff member attached to them. But really, our producers do a lot of the work. Mm-hmm. They work all day long determining, what is the order of stories in a newscast, and what is the top story, and what should be seen second, and grouping stories together with like, and kind of working on those transitions of like, we have kind of like a hard news story, and then we need to go to weather.
Right.
Is that going to be an awkward transition? And so the producers really do a lot of the writing and decision making when it comes to order and style of whatever news show that you're watching. Right. And then the anchor can get in there, make sure everything is English. Yes. There's no words missing, and you pronounce, names and places correctly. Mm-hmm. And then they can kind of, I can go in there and kind of tweak it. And if I wouldn't say something the way a producer wrote it, I would just alter it, and write it in kind of my voice to make it more authentic when I deliver it on the news.
Yeah.
So you're just talking to the viewer. Things have changed a lot, since the old days, and where it was very formal, and tonight is this, and now it's, we want to make it seem like, as much as we can, that we're not reading off a teleprompter.
Yes.
And just make it conversational, and really try and, use normal language and, conversational tone.
Yes, less stuffy.
Yes, exactly.
That makes sense. On Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, you're at Nina Mehlhaf. That's Ninamehlhaf.
Mehlhaf. It's a crazy German name. It's okay. HLH.
Wait, one more time? Yes.
Mehlhaf.
Oh, weird, because my autocorrect did this for some
It's
reason.
okay.
That's
Don't
really
worry.
bizarre.
It's happened all my life, Joel.
Oh, okay, perfect. The reason I'm joined by Nina in the studio is because we're brought together by the film Switching Channels.
Ah, yes.
At the time of this recording, Switching Channels is available. I didn't check, but I bet you can rent it at Movie Madness. You can buy it on DVD, and you can stream it on Amazon Prime, YouTube, and iTunes. Was this a first-time watch for you?
It was. I
Oh,
liked it. I watched it this
perfect.
weekend.
Oh, great. The synopsis of the film is a television news chief courts his anchorwoman ex-wife, with an 11th hour story. I've never heard of the term 11th hour.
Well, I think in this case it was Burt Reynolds trying to get Kathleen Turner
Yes.
back, so he was enticing her with the big
Right.
hot story of the day.
It's so, yeah, okay, we'll get to that. I chose it for a specific reason, and that being many films that involve your profession are a bit of a Debbie Downer. It's usually a very serious subject matter, except for two main films that I found. The first one being His Girl Friday from 1940, in which an editor played by Cary Grant tries to every trick to keep his ace reporter ex-wife, played by Rosalind Russell, from remarrying, which sounds familiar.
Okay.
And the other film being The Front Page from 1931, where reporter Hildebrandt Johnson and his editor Adolph Menjou, who hope to cash in on a big story involving an escaped murderer, and they even hide him in a roll-top desk to try to help him escape.
Oh,
This
boy.
film is a remake of those two movies.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
they
it's kind
do
of
sound familiar.
Yes, they're very, very much just sutured together to make one story. Bert tries all these ways to keep Kathleen Turner, and then ultimately it's the murderer story. So they kind of just
It got
stuck to
serious
two movies.
in parts. It was
did,
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the shifting of tones is something I really enjoyed in this movie. Before we get to the film, just to talk about some of the players involved and the way that they're involved. The director is Ted Kotcheff. He did Fun with Dick and Jane in 1977, Rambo First Blood 1982, Uncommon Valor in 1983, Switching Channels in 1988. I love that he did Switching Channels and Rambo. Weekend at Bernie's in 1989.
Oh, love Weekend at Bernie's.
And then after that, he moved on to produce 263 episodes of SVU.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The cinematographer is Frances Protat. I'm probably saying that wrong. A lot of French films, a few comedies, couple horror films. He did Switching Channels in 1988, Weekend at Bernie's in 1989, a lot of TV, Brain Scan in 1994, Johnny Mnemonic in 1995, and Senior Trip in 1995 with a young Jeremy Renner. What a way to end it all. Editor is Tom Noble. I covered a lot of this in the Too Many Chefs episode, but he's super talented, so he did Too Many Chefs in 1978, Red Dawn in 1984, there's a classic.
Wow.
Witness in 1985, Poltergeist 2 The Other Side in 1986, Mosquito Coast in 1986, Switching Channels in 1988, Exorcist 3 in 1990, Thelma and Louise in 1991, and he continued on to do many, many films. Wow. This is a tricky one to recap this stuff because so many people involved are so talented that their careers are, you just can't.
Just the genre alone of all those movies are so different.
It's really crazy. Next we have one of my personal faves, Kathleen Turner.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many movies, so I couldn't list them all, but I just picked a couple gems for anyone perhaps younger that's listening and hasn't grown up with the amazing Kathleen Turner. On screen, Body Heat in 1981, Man with Two Brains in 1983, Romancing the Stone in 1984, Jewel of the Nile in 1985, Peggy Sue Got Married in 1986, Switching Channels in 1988, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. She's uncredited, but she's the voice of Jessica Rabbit.
No way.
Yeah.
I loved that movie.
Yeah, it was huge.
She was the voice
She's
of Jessica
the voice
Rabbit.
of Jessica Rabbit.
Wow.
But uncredited because they wanted her to be her own character.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then, of course, she went on to do so many other things. But for time, we'll move on to Burt Reynolds, who had a very short career. No, he did so much, 4 decades. He's a legend. But just around the time of this film, Rent-A-Cop in 1987, Switching Channels in 1988, the voice of Charlie B. Barkin in All Dogs Go to Heaven in 1989. And that's where I chose to stop, because he has a huge career, but I'd love just to be like, but he was Charlie B. Barkin. Christopher Reeve, Superman in 1978, Superman 2 in 1980, Death Trap in 82, which is amazing, Superman 3 in 83, Superman 4 in 87, Switching Channels in 88. He went on to do tons of television and TV from there. Henry Gibson, who I absolutely adore in this movie. I loved him as a comedic actor, but seeing him in this as Ike the killer He
Do you know what I
is
like
incredible.
freaked out about when I first saw him?
Yeah.
Was the Klopex from The Burbs.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Not a lot of people remember that that's who was the
oh,
Klopex.
yes. He had the skulls in the trunk,
Yeah.
the Klopex
Yes.
next door of
So
Tom
true.
Hanks.
And I grew up watching reruns, of course, of Laugh-In.
Oh, okay.
And he was on that
Oh,
show, and he
interesting.
would say, "That's very interesting."
Oh,
that was him.
that's him.
Yes, and so when I saw him in this was the first time I saw him as in a dramatic role, and he's so good. He's like it's like when you see a comedian do a drama and they have this depth of sadness, and I think you could see that in some of like Robin Williams stuff where they're so funny, but when they go like dark or sad, you get like goosebumps because
He
you're
gets
like,
those like shifty
whoa.
eyes, and then
Yeah.
kind of, and especially from The Burbs.
Yes.
With Tom Hanks. I mean, it's just kind of the quiet, like,
It's
you know,
the quiet,
calm
coy
demeanor
part.
that you're like, what is this guy up to?
Yes,
But yeah,
something
he
bad.
was very good.
Yes. So he was the voice of Wilbur in Charlotte's Web. Nashville, 1975. Tons of TV. He was in other cartoons like The Wuzzles and Foofer. Switching channels in 88. The Burbs in 89. So back to back there. Continued on to do tons of TV, and then sparse films like Biodome in 1996, and he was in Magnolia in 1999.
Oh, right. Magnolia is such a good movie.
Yeah. Then lastly, Ned Beatty, who I didn't know was in this. Who
does he play?
He's the senator guy that keeps trying not to
Oh,
swear,
right,
and then
right,
he's gonna
right.
have people just shoot the
And
murderer.
his face is so recognizable, but I couldn't remember what, and you'll tell me.
I will. Deliverance in 1972. That's his first film, which is insane. White Lightning in 73 with Burt Reynolds. Nashville in 75. Network in 76. That's, of course, Exorcist 2, The Heretic in 77. Superman in 78. Then so many great things. The Unholy in 88. Switching Channels in 88. Midnight Crossing in 88. Like, it's crazy when they have so many great films in one year.
In the same year, yeah.
It's just nuts. And then he went on to do tons of more incredible things. But for the sake of time, we'll leave it at that. Is there anywhere you want to start with Switching Channels? Any first thoughts?
First thoughts. It was just kind of a trip to see a newsroom,
Yes.
and particularly the news director's plush office in
It's pretty nice.
those days, with the full bar, the kitchenette,
Yes.
the liquor decanters, you know, at the ready,
Yeah.
which was, you know, I think very true back then. A lot of reporters in their bottom drawer, you know, had a flask of something.
Yeah, that's what you always
back
heard.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the previous films, they each tried to, like, I think, update the story in a way, going from print to now we're going to television, and there's satellite dishes. And so I just think it's interesting that you're seeing this specific time that at the time they're like, this is the modern times, and now
Right.
it's like very, very different.
It is and it isn't. You know, I mean, we still have the microwave trucks that, you know, you see in this movie with the little dish on the top. I
yeah.
mean, we don't use those as much because now you're able to use kind of cell phone signals to
Yeah.
beam back your video to the station and everything. And newsrooms really look a lot the same. I mean, it's just a giant room, you know, people are yelling back and forth. You have the police scanner going.
Yeah.
And that's why it's just fun being in a newsroom, is because, you know, it's kind of adrenaline is always around the corner, you
Right.
know, of something happening. And then just rushing, you know, from story to story, is really it's all kind of the same, you know,
Yeah.
generally as what was in this movie. And, you know, when you get a big story, it is, I mean, it kind of pulls her back into the business when
Yes.
she starts falling in love with Christopher Reeves.
Yeah.
And boy, he was a good looking guy.
Oh my gosh.
He was huge. He's way taller than I
Oh yeah.
always thought.
Yeah, he is. I don't know exactly how tall.
And it made
but
Burt Reynolds look short.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which was
he's a
interesting.
tall drink of water, that guy. In the beginning of the film, Kathleen Turner is wearing the iconic trench coat. Is the trench coat still a thing in the news?
Oh my
You don't
gosh,
have a
Dirk.
trench coat?
I don't know. I think that's up to fashion. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a wrap trench coat,
Oh.
but I know it's disappointing. I should get
You have a
one,
smaller
right?
one,
I have. Yes, I do have a trench coat, I guess, but. Yeah, that's kind of an old school thing, you know.
Yeah.
Now they want you to wear the monogrammed like jacket with the
Oh,
station
yes.
logo on there,
Nice.
just to get that, you know,
Put
logo
it
on
there.
camera a little bit
Right.
more. So, R.I.P. to the trench coat.
Yeah. In the opening scene, we also see her jogging and she gets splashed by water.
Hmm.
Things like that, I imagine, happen to
Yep.
you, and they're just kept in as.
Sprinklers have come on me during a live shot. A couple weeks ago, Dirk, I fell down on live television in a
Oh,
live shot in Tigard. I tripped over
did you put
a
that on
deck. I
Instagram?
did. I was
Okay,
like,
I
I'm
didn't know
just
that was
gonna.
on camera.
Oh yeah, it was live.
Wow.
And so yes, things happen
Yeah.
when
And
you're
there's
around a camera.
and it's all live, so it's just in.
You just gotta deal with it. I mean,
Okay.
at the time when I was mid-fall in the air, I was like, I cannot believe this is happening to
Right.
me. But I was okay, and you just kind of laugh it
That's
off.
what
And
happens.
yeah, we just kept reminiscing about it all the rest of the whole hour that we had to talk.
That's pretty great.
So yes, splashing by cars, all kinds of stuff.
And I think the opening they do a great job showing Kathleen Turner wearing kind of all these different hats and doing many different not literally hats but
Mm-hmm.
many different
Jobs.
things fitting into reporting and the different tones of the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Is that part of the appeal to you? Like I need to be a somber tone in here, or maybe there's some levity to the weight of this story, or
Yeah, of course. And I mean, just, we're all human.
yeah,
And even though this is, a job that you do every day, certain stories definitely affect you,
sure,
and particularly as a reporter, I mean, you're out, knocking on doors and walking down streets and talking to somebody who just lost a loved one
right,
or who doesn't know where their loved one is, and you're trying to help them get the word out. And, you know, many times they're not happy to see you, but you still have to do your job
right,
and, knock on that door and get yelled at. But, okay, tell your boss, okay, I knocked on the door, we're going to leave them alone.
mm-hmm,
And, but yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, some of the stories we cover are just plain terrible and sad. And so you have to, be a human first
mm-hmm,
and respect, what real life situation you're in and around with people that you're interviewing. And then when you're able to have fun, I mean, that's just such a nice change.
yeah,
When you're able to have fun and be creative in your writing and how you're
sure,
putting together a story or how you do an interview, what camera angle you use, or am I going to interview them, on a boat in the river or
right,
something. And those are fun times to be able to kind of let creative juices flow other than just having a normal kind of boring news story. But yeah, and it is just every day is different. And that's why I really like this career. It
yeah,
has changed a lot and it is changing very fast with our viewing habits.
mm-hmm,
But every day is different and you don't know, what story you're going to cover until you get into that meeting in the morning. And we have to bring story ideas every morning,
oh, that was
at
my next
least two.
question.
Yeah, at least two story ideas. We have a big meeting at 9:30 in the morning where our assignment manager comes in and kind of rattles off like, okay, here's what we know is happening today, these are the events. We have to cover these things, these are some news tips that we got from the
Mm-hmm,
public. And then we go around the room and each reporter says their idea. Hey, I heard about this story, I really want to follow up to something I did yesterday, we've now have more information or whatever it is. And we all as a group discuss the merits of whatever ideas that people have, and then you get assigned to that and you go back to your desk, you start making calls immediately because by then it's 10:15, and you have this window that's always, the clock is ticking from
yeah,
about 10 to 2 o'clock, where you have to go out, call people, bug them and say, I need an interview right now,
yeah,
on your lunch break, whenever, can I come bother you? And we're
mm,
always so pushy. I feel terrible, but we have this window. We have to go out and gather the video, gather all the interviews. And then usually I kind of stop down at by 2 o'clock and start looking through the tape. And there's a little time code, and I write down, it's called logging. You log your interview. You write down, the words that they say and what times they hit. So your editor can then go back in the tape and find that time code and find that soundbite that you want. And then you start writing the story. And it's kind of like a puzzle. You have all the pieces, you have the interviews, and you have the video. You just have to figure out what order and, what you really want them to say themselves on camera and what
Yes.
you can kind of paraphrase information-wise. Then you put it all together, hand the script to your photographer/editor. You're in a tiny little car usually,
Yeah.
or a van. It's hot outside or it's cold outside. People are knocking on the windows. What are you guys covering today? What's
Oh,
the
great.
story? And, they have maybe an hour to put it together, and then you need to be ready at like 3:45 to go for the 4 o'clock news. Then you need to write a new version for the 5 p.m.
Oh,
and then a new version for the 6 p.m.
Wow.
And then you write a newspaper-style copy for the website.
Right.
And send them photos. It's a full day. So from 2 o'clock to probably 7, you're like slamming. To just write, the same thing, different ways,
Right.
shorter versions, what have you. But it's kind of that adrenaline, and once you're done for the day, you don't take any work home. That's what I kind of like about it, is I'm really a procrastinator, and if I had something where I had like a big project to do, it's due in 2 weeks, oh my gosh, I would fall flat on my
Night
face.
before.
Daily deadlines are good for me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's always keeping you on your toes. It's something new every day,
Yeah, that's a crazy amount of work for something that then instantly people are like, what's next?
Right. And do it all over again tomorrow.
Yeah. Wow. Then she's asleep and she gets elbowed awake right before they're live. Have you ever fallen asleep or in this exhausting
I have fallen
profession?
asleep. When I first started here at KGW 6 years ago, I was a reporter on the morning show, the sunrise show. So you have to be at work, and this is what I do now. I have to be at work at 3:30 in the morning, which is horrible.
Oh my gosh.
And so I wake up at 2, get ready, be at work at 3:30, and we would immediately get our assignment. Okay, you guys are headed here. This is the story you're covering. So we go in a van. It's pitch black. And I would write my story, and then I would leave my earpiece in my ear, just turned down really low so I could still hear, and I would take a nap in the van in between my live shots.
Yeah.
And
Do you have
one
a little
time,
hammock, or you just kind of curled in a
no,
corner?
you just kind of kick back the old passenger seat and lean back with your eyes closed. Lock the doors to the van because it's dark out. You never know who's lurking around.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would take a little nap in between. But there was one time where I either missed the hit because I heard them starting to yell at me in my ear, like, you're up 30 seconds. I'm like, oh my God, like trying to run out. Me and my photographer had both fallen asleep. He's sitting in the back. Great. I'm up in the front seat. And so, yes, I have fallen asleep before. It's not a good feeling.
You sort of already answered this because I was just thinking, if you're constantly seeing just some of the worst parts of humanity and having to report on that it would you'd be kind of steeped in it. But it sounds like you're able to just kind of check everything. Do you feel like it's impacted the way you see the world in any way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely... Brenda Braxton and I have talked about this too. She has 2 grown kids now, and I'm just raising a barely 2-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's going to be celebrating 30 years in this business this August at 30 years at KGW, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And all the stories and the scams and warnings to parents and kidnapping stories and whatever, and you become just this worrywart, because all the things that can happen. And so she was teasing herself, just like my poor kids, I'm always reminding them, or when they were little, don't do this, stay close, stay where I can see you, or whatever. And so and maybe that's a good thing, I don't know. It can also be overbearing.
I think it's good to be aware. I feel like, because even if you're aware, things can happen, but I think with the most information is the child's going to be safer. You want them to be aware of, at a certain age, maybe not right away, about stranger danger and things like that. It's just so hard because they're so innocent and open to the world, and then as a parent, you kind of have to crush some of that in a way to keep them safe. To be like, if you see a van at the park, maybe don't go up to it. Whatever. I mean, it might be a news reporter, but it might
don't
be
bother
napping.
me, I'm sleeping.
Yes, but it could be something very dangerous. So I think it's a tricky situation,
And it does. I mean, some stories really follow you. I'll be driving around Portland and I'll drive past a house where I know something bad happened, or I had to go and I had an experience, with somebody breaking down crying, or I've had a couple times where I knew about someone's death
Yeah.
before their family member did.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. And so I would go up and be like, oh my God, I'm Nina from whatever station this is. I'm so sorry. And they're just like, what? What are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, and it is the worst feeling
That
because
is
then it's like, what do you say? And then you see the
that. Yeah, it
whole
all plays out.
reaction play out
Oh,
in front of you. Um, and that's awful. And, gosh, I don't want to be the person to tell somebody that, but that hasn't that's only happened like twice in my whole career.
still, that's two
But
times.
yeah, I mean, you definitely like things, stick out in your mind, or places stick out in your mind, and some of them are really fun and
Yeah.
some of them are terrible, but it is, you just have to kind of, okay, what's the next day? I'm on a whole new topic that I have to really concentrate on and be a mini expert on that for the day to get it
Right.
right.
Because you want to be respectful of the people involved in the story, and
Yes.
like you said, the human element of it.
Yes.
It's important to have. And I think that there was a certain time that where news was portrayed kind of like ambulance chasers, and
Mm-hmm.
that sort of way, more like they're trying to take something from people. And it sounds like there's also an aspect where they're trying to reflect human stories and tell people stories
Yeah.
respectfully, which I think is important to put
I
out
mean, I
there.
think I've met some reporters who,
Got to get my name on the big story.
right,
Yeah.
and they just don't seem to care, or they'll even go as far as telling somebody, who they're interviewing, uh, promise this will be an exclusive,
Oh,
like
sure.
don't talk to anyone else
Mm-hmm.
about this. And that person has the right to, of course, do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
It's their story, it's their voice that they're choosing to share with whoever they want. But I don't know. I've never been a person to do that. It's like, if you want to.
Yeah.
So there used to be, I think, really, and some cities, some TV markets are very cutthroat and super competitive amongst each
Yes.
other. I've worked in Portland and Bend and Sacramento, and I mean, Bend doesn't really count. There's only one TV station over there, so you're getting Super Bowl ratings every night. So you're not competing with anyone. But both Portland and Sacramento, like everyone out in the field, reporters from all the different stations, newspaper, like everyone is really great. And, we'll help each other out, particularly on the morning show. We're all there like at an ungodly
Yeah,
hour.
right. There's
And it's
camaraderie
pitch
there.
black, and you're like, hey, Channel 2 reporter, do you want to come up and walk up this scary dark driveway together and knock on this person's door? And they're like, yes, let's do it. And so we pair up and we're like, okay, because it doesn't matter. At the end of the
Right.
day, like, viewership now, things are changing so much where you're not like, oh, it's 5 o'clock, Martha, let's sit down on the
Mm-hmm.
Davenport and watch the 5 o'clock news. No, by 5, you already know everything.
Yeah.
You've had your phone, you've already scrolled, you're over it. It's me TV time, we're
Right.
calling it. It's Netflix and whatever you want to watch to kind of chill for the
Yeah.
night or whatever.
I think that's part of maybe why this movie is called Switching Channels, because at the time at 5 you would have like 3 stations, all news, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
which news is that person gonna
Mm-hmm.
watch,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're gonna be flipping through to be like, oh, it's the sports thing. I want to see the kitten in a tree story or whatever it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, it's all, and now I mean, we used to, if we had some like great news story or some like crazy new update and we didn't want the other stations to hear about it, we would hold off. Even when Twitter, and I mean, we're first starting, like,
Yeah.
we wouldn't tweet it or post it online until it first aired on TV. So we wouldn't give the other stations like any time heads
Right.
up to get it. Now that stuff is out the window.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you know it, you post it, and digital and web is first now because that's where everyone is.
Everyone is.
Your
Yeah.
eyeballs are on your phone,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just more important to get you that information and that update and that story versus like no one's going to wait around to watch it on, the
Yeah.
evening news.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like what's going to happen to everyone wants, like Vice News, or everyone
Sure.
wants to read the latest, these fabulous investigations by the New York Times or the
Mm-hmm.
Washington Post, and I mean, movies being made about that, like the Boston Catholic Church scandal and all that stuff. Everyone wants that kind of journalism, but nobody wants to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is this conundrum, and of course, newspapers are really dealing with it of how do you keep that alive, that quality of, I mean, news and
Yeah.
information and deep dives into stuff. But, how do you keep the ship afloat and keep getting paid for it?
Yeah,
So,
which you see even in this movie in 1988.
right.
You see the television versus print
Mm-hmm.
situation,
Mm-hmm.
and the print being called dinosaurs.
And I love, a couple scenes of when they're in the press room, like at the city capitol or the city hall building.
Yeah.
And and it's so true. It's like they had the old crotchety newspaper guy and they have all the TV people and they're like, wait, I can't remember what the detail was. Was it like 1 or 2 guards
Yeah.
at the prison? And they all turn to the newspaper guy because he's going to have it right. And he was like, it was 3. And they're like, oh, they're all on the phone. The TV people are like, oh, he says it was 3. It's like, yep, that is still true, man. I mean,
That's
newspaper
so funny.
reporters, they're the best.
Yeah.
They're really good.
I wanted to ask what it's like between shots when you're, I guess, an anchor when you're in the studio. Did I get that right?
Commercial breaks?
Yeah, commercial breaks.
Mm-hmm.
I think you do an excellent job giving people a peek behind the curtain, whether it's through Instagram or, which I think is helpful, makes you all seem like humans and not just like
Good, we are.
just robots reporting whatever someone says to say. Is there anything, is there jokes being made?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Swear words. I shouldn't say that, but yes, there is. A lot of jokey stuff. I mean, now I'm on our Sunrise show, and we just have such a fun crew. I mean, Drew Carney is a goofball.
Yeah.
Rod Hill is hilarious. And, Brenda and Ashley Korsland. And we have a great team of producers and behind the scenes, like newscast directors who are, cracking jokes in our ear, sometimes while we're on. Never usually on a serious story, but yeah, we have fun. And a lot of times we're looking ahead to make sure, okay, what's coming next? Like, which camera am I supposed to be looking at? We have a really big studio where in the morning we don't sit at all. So we're able to move around
yeah.
and kind of use body language and just chat more human-like and naturally. And so we're always like, okay, which part of the studio are we standing in next? Is it going to go from this camera?
Do you have like
to this
multiple
camera?
sets in one room kind of thing?
You've been there, haven't you?
Once.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a huge room and we have tons of different monitor spots where we can put a camera.
Okay.
The one that is featured the most prominently behind like the main news desk, we call the BAM. It's short for big ass monitor.
Okay.
I think I can say that.
You can say podcast, anything you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what we call it, the BAM, big ass monitor, because it's huge. And then we have a couple different we just got this really cool giant touch screen that works,
cool.
instant, just like your phone.
Yeah.
We can pull up anything. We can zoom in on maps. It's pretty exciting and nerdy. But yeah, so we're kind of looking ahead to, what's coming up next. And they can bring up audio or pictures of like a live shot of like, hey guys, we want to give you a sneak peek at like this live shot we're going to have coming up. Or if we're going to be talking about something, be like, hey, can you pop that, beach camera up? I want to see like what the weather is. Is it cloudy? What am I going to be saying? And then they kind of take it away before the commercial ends.
One of the things you mentioned, Drew, the first farmer's market, my wife has a sauce company, and the first one she ever did, we showed up downtown at 4 a.m. to set up, and it was us and I think Portland Creamery, which does goat cheese. We were next to each other because the market didn't set up for another like 3 hours or something, but they needed us there so that he could do a segment, I think, about the market coming back, and just what that means for someone. Like, this is now 8 years that we've been doing this, but it was our first year, and it's so exciting as a small business person to have that interaction with a reporter or anchor. I don't know which one it is at that time.
True. Yeah, he was out in the field.
Okay.
Reporter.
To have someone like care and come out with a camera and to be featured in that. So it's just just a little feedback from being on the other side of it that it does like
It's probably a whirlwind too,
it
because they
feels
show
super
up and they're like, okay,
exciting.
this is what's going to happen, and we're on.
Well,
You're just like, whoa.
he is a whirlwind for
Yes.
sure, but also before shots and things, he was very like, I don't know. I feel like the best reporters that I've met, um, they're not fake on camera. They're more of an elevated version of themselves because you have to have more energy. Obviously, you
Right.
don't want to like have someone turn the camera on and just be like moping there.
Uh-huh.
But I've been amazed by people's skill set to instantly turn on, focus on copy, be warm and light up to the camera, and yeah, it's fascinating
It
to
is
see
a weird
professionals.
thing, and I've only kind of noticed it and like evolve in myself. I mean,
Yeah.
when I first start, everyone when they first start, you think you're being so emotive and
Right.
like, oh my gosh, I'm really putting myself out there. Like I am, punching up these words. And then you go back and like if I went back and watched college tapes or
Oh
my
yeah.
first stuff in Bend, it's horrible. It's so monotone.
Yes.
My face like doesn't move, and but to me, in my inside yourself, you're like,
I was
whoa,
killing it.
I was like so good. And then you go back. I mean, you really have to like bump it up to level 10. It's almost acting,
No, it
where
is. Yeah,
it
yeah.
is because it really, I don't know what happens, you know, in the camera or in the screen, but it like
Yeah. It's
dulls
like
it down.
an actor playing themselves, essentially. Like you
Yeah.
have to emote more, for the
For
camera to
even
read
it
it.
to come off as normal
Yeah.
on camera.
Yes.
And then you look normal and human.
Yeah.
If you were your normal self on camera, you'd probably look boring or something. Not
Right.
you,
No, yeah,
but
yeah.
any of us. So it is
Yeah.
like a weird phenomenon that you just kind of learn to
Well, and not everyone's on all
be.
the time,
Hmm.
but when the camera's on, you need to be on because then people are like, oh, I would like to hang out with someone with energy like that,
Yeah, yeah.
That sounds fun, even though really after like a couple minutes, you might be like, okay, tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you're pretty intense.
You're crazy.
You're jumping around eating hot sauce. Is it an extremely competitive profession, or is it something where you can just kind of keep your head down, work on your skill set your own goals kind of thing?
I would say, yeah, it's always been really competitive.
Ah, okay.
And I mean, you're not getting rich in this
Right.
business at all because so many people want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They pay you nothing. At least, I mean, for a while you will work for nothing. My first job was 20 grand in Bend, and then I remember I got a job as a freelance reporter, which just meant I wasn't under contract, so I could leave whenever I wanted. But I remember they called me and they were like, oh, you're going to be making $36,000. And I was like, oh my God, that is amazing. I'm moving to California. And then my dad was like, you idiot. He Googled the cost of living calculator or
Yeah.
something. And it was the exact same as like 24 grand in Bend, Oregon was 36 in Sacramento. And I was like, damn it.
Oh.
But I've already forgotten the question that you asked me.
Just if it was a
Oh,
competitive
is it competitive?
market.
Yes. Everyone people want to be on TV, you
Yeah.
know? But it's not, when you really get down to it, it's not about you.
Right.
Yes, we all have our little egos and we
Yeah.
want to be dynamic, but we're also insecure about ourselves.
Sure.
And, but I mean, it's about storytelling. And so you have to be a good writer and you have to like to write and you have to like to listen
Yeah.
to people because you're telling their story and that's a lot of responsibility.
It also is a lot of work for a very little screen time.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
the amount of
Because
things that you
it's
talked
not
about starting in the morning, like, I mean, that's a staggering amount of time to take
For
place for
2
your
minutes.
2-minute segment.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
I mean, that alone should scare a lot of people off.
Yeah. And it is kind of like the adrenaline rush of like, oh, I'm going out on breaking news and
Right.
that's my experience and it's so cool. Or like today I got to, go to OMSI and watch the live lunar module or whatever it was recently. And just cool experiences. I mean, that really is a lot of what it is. It's like you're meeting fascinating people, you're learning about something new every day, or you're thrown in a crazy situation where your heart is beating and you're like, okay, we're going to be doing this breaking news hit. I have nothing written down. I just have to remember and like walk you through this scene.
Yeah.
And it's exciting, and that's kind of why you do it. Is like you want to be telling people stories. You love the adrenaline rush.
Right.
And oh, by the way, you get to be on TV for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Every day, and that's it. But so a lot of people want to do it, but it is getting harder,
Yeah. I'd probably be fired because eventually people would get tired of me pitching ice cream parlors just because I want to go.
Just because
I
you
want to go to 50
them.
Licks, so I want to do a story about 50 Licks as ice cream cocktails.
It's all in your pitch, Dirk. If you can pitch that to the newsroom
I need a good angle.
Have a new angle, exactly,
Yeah.
or a nugget of information, then it's all in how you sell it, and they'll assign
perfect.
you that story.
I need to work on my pitches
yes.
then. She cracks up in one scene over the 15,000 kazoo players on TV.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever lost it during a segment?
Oh, yes. Totally. A lot in Bend, I would have full laugh attacks because something, ridiculous
just strikes
was happening.
You silly, yeah.
Yeah, like mistakes on the air, or like someone would walk in front of a camera or something. Yeah. Or just I was young and immature and I would just get laugh attacks. I almost had a laugh attack yesterday, actually. Keely Chalmers was filling in for weather, and she didn't know she had to read these, like, a birthday list of happy birthdays to all these wonderful people who have birthdays on that day. And she, unbeknownst to her, she was just reading out the teleprompter. We had the paper list, and it was like 12 names long.
Yeah.
And so she was really taking her time on these first couple. Happy birthday to young Logan. Oh, we hope you have a great day. And she couldn't see us, but me and Drew and Brenda were like, oh my God, is this going to last a half hour? How long? And she was just like, a great happy birthday to you. And then the prompter would scroll up and she would see another name. And then it would start all over again. And we're like, oh my God, we're going to be here for like a half hour.
She kept through all of them, or did she have to speed through the last 9?
No, she just went at her own pace.
Wow.
And I started like silently laughing.
That is hilarious.
And then it came back, and Keely had no idea what I was laughing about. But I almost lost it. But it's okay. It was, you don't want to laugh during a serious story about something else.
Right. That is pretty funny. Now, we don't know how Kathleen started in reporting, but how did was it a goal from high school? Like, I want to be a reporter, or?
I have always wanted to. So my aunt was the main news anchor at KOIN, Channel 6, here for many years. Shirley Hancock was her name. She anchored with Mike Donahue.
Oh.
Yes, on Channel 6 for a long, long, long time. And so I grew up watching her as a little kid. She would, before she had her own kids, she's younger than my mom, she would take me to KOIN for Take Your Daughter to Work Day, and she would just bring me. So I have little pictures of me in a dress sitting on the news set with her and not Ken Body. Gosh, the sports guy now, I can't think of his name. Ed Whalen.
Okay.
With Ed Whalen, he was very famous in town, and Mike Donahue, and I would get to watch the newscast from, behind the scenes in the studio and see the newsroom and see all the, activity, and I just thought it was the coolest. And so she always let me do that. And then I always loved watching snow coverage in Portland when I was a kid.
Sure.
Praying for a snow day off of school. And so I would watch all the reporters live up, on Sylvan Hill, all these same spots that we go to now. It's ridiculous. And, there's one snowflake coming down, and they had the crawl on the bottom of the screen of like what schools would be out. And I'm just like, please, 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 please. And I just grew to love kind of watching the immediacy of weather coverage and being out where things were happening. As a kid, I wanted to be the first person to tell somebody something.
Oh,
be like, guess what?
Breaking
this happened.
news.
Yeah, and see their reaction of like, whoa, no way. And that always was exciting to me. And I like to write and make up little stories. And so it was never really a question somehow. I'm kind of one of those lucky people that was like, I always knew what I wanted to do. And I just did it. And so at U of I started at University of Colorado Boulder, and I had a lot of fun there for my first time away from my parents. So my grades tanked.
Sure.
And I got good grades in high school, and my dad was like, I'm not going to pay out-of-state tuition for you to get crappy grades. So he yanked me back in state. I went to Oregon, and they have a fabulous TV news program there. And I interned. I interned at KGW in 2001, and I was there when 9/11 happened, and they put me to work. I was on the air that day.
Whoa.
It was all hands on deck. I went to Elmer's Flag Shop on, I think it's Northeast Broadway. It's still there, I think.
Elmer's Flag Shop?
Yeah, they sold flags and pennants, and maybe it's not there anymore. But there was a run on American flags
Sure.
after 9/11, and I got to go and interview them and do a little story, and just working in real newsrooms, like as a college student, was just thrilling to me. It was so cool to see, just, starting the morning with nothing and ending with,
Sure.
all these news stories and being out. And you weren't sitting at a desk all day,
Right.
you're out and about and in the car and shaking hands with people, and it was never boring. And so I always just loved to do it. Newspaper in high school and that kind of stuff too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Next, she goes on vacation. She meets Christopher Reeves, who's quite the
Yes.
dreamboat. She burns his credit card on accident.
I'm very sorry.
No problem.
Frankly, I think because there's too many candles at this resort. There's an excessive amount of candles everywhere, and I have no idea why.
I guess so,
It's
now that
really,
I think about it.
really
Yeah.
bizarre. The romance quickly ensues.
God, your hair looks amazing in the moonlight.
Very quickly. We get a lovely pool makeout session there.
Oh, yeah.
And then they return to, pardon the pun, break the news to Burt Reynolds.
Good one.
At which point, I was blown away by the fashion. Like, Christopher Reeve's suit is pretty amazing.
It's like Miami Vice style.
Yeah, it's really incredible. We get some more good on-site news location stuff. I think that's when we sort of get introduced to the security woman, who's
Oh, yeah, she was good.
she's phenomenal. And then we see a man having to jump on the satellites outside of the building.
That was funny.
Is that a thing
Yeah.
that has to happen, or
Not anymore.
Okay.
Not in my time, no.
Again!
Then they go to a sports bar.
Sully, your table's ready.
Christy and I'll have the usual.
Right, 2 shooters, wild turkey.
Such a sports bar that they're eating in a boxing ring, watching baseball, and the menu is carried around by a lady that has one of those round 2 cards.
Yeah.
Which is...
I just figured that's Chicago, man.
It might be. It's pretty intense.
Yeah. Chicago is a good sports city.
And then she gets duped to do one last interview to hopefully save Ike's life.
And you know what? In that scene where they're at that bar in
Yeah.
Chicago, what is so true for news people versus like non-news people is Christopher Reeve. Kathleen Turner and Burt Reynolds are talking about, this big story and this guy that's, he's gonna be put to death, and she's
Yeah.
got to go and interview him. It might save him. And then Christopher Reeve's like,
Ike Roscoe? Who's Ike Roscoe?
You don't know who Ike Roscoe is? His picture's only been in the paper every single day for the last 3 months.
Yeah.
and that is so true. I burst out laughing. My husband actually watched the movie
awesome.
with me, and he rolled his eyes because he knows. We get so taken aback and shocked when somebody isn't keeping up on
Right.
whatever the story is that we are.
Yeah.
And we're like, what? How can you not be paying attention? This is what's happening. You need to know this because of X, Y, and Z. And so I thought that was such a
Pretty
spot-on
great.
reaction
Yeah.
of who's this guy you're talking about? And they're just like, wow, this is the biggest story out there.
Yeah, I think that that's a really fun part of this movie is that the people involved in the news, I think, are portrayed really well. Like, they're not oafs
It's not
or
jokey
anything.
and-
No,
yeah.
they're very, they're passionate about the things, the specificities, getting the people to cover the things and to have it air at the specific time and everything. It seems very well handled,
Yeah.
I think. Then we have Henry Gibson. And like I said before, I love Henry Gibson, and his performance is so somber and heartfelt.
Hello, Ike.
Hi, Miss Collard.
Thank you for giving me this interview.
I'd do anything for you, Miss Collard. You're the only one who's been decent to me the whole time.
Up until this point of the film, it's more comedic. I mean, there's some drama, I guess, a little bit, but it's more it's funny. And then suddenly this part is very grounding, it feels like, because then this is the person whose life is on the line. And I think they do a good job, I think, making us feel pretty sad for Ike's situation.
Yeah, when she goes and interviews him in the
Yeah.
prison.
And then instantly there's, and to get the interview, I love how she turns the camera on, the
I
warden
like
guy.
wrote that down almost. I'm like, dang, that's a good tactic,
It's
girl.
so smart. To be,
She's like, she knew that they were going to come
Yeah.
and pull the plug and be like, oh, they're going to, but if you get him on camera saying, no, you can't do this.
Are you the person that's going to keep, like, whatever? And
Yeah,
he's just like,
that's smart.
He's changed his mind. Boys, let's roll tape. We're rolling, Terwilliger. You're not trying to prevent the American public from hearing the final words of a condemned man, are you, Warden?
No, I was just trying to make sure you got in okay.
Thank you. Go, boys.
I mean, that's a good tactic
Yeah.
that would work today.
I loved that.
Except you just do it on your phone now.
And then right after that, we shift to a comedic scene, which is like the shifting tones in this movie, which is so fun. I don't know if movies are that daring these days to be like, and then it's going to be a joke right after the guy on death row.
It was weird, yeah.
But this scene is one of my favorites because it shows how Christopher Reeve can be so funny and his physicality, and it's the elevator scene. It's just, he's hilarious
afraid of
when he
heights,
realizes
right.
that it's going up, and his neck elongates like a giraffe almost. His shoulders drop, and then he just kind of like melts into the floor of the elevator and refuses
Here's
to
this
leave.
big hunky guy, and he's scared of
He's so
heights.
terrifying.
Yeah.
It's such a transformation. It's so funny to me. And then we get a great scene of reporters practicing saying big words.
Dichotomy. Egregious. Shit.
And another one spraying his hair with hairspray, and he's got napkins in the neck of
Oh,
his
yeah.
shirt, so his
That's
makeup
so you don't get
doesn't-
your makeup on your white
Yeah.
collar, yep.
And I just thought that was a great kind of quick pass through the van of what's happening.
All true.
Yeah.
All true, still.
Just practicing
Yeah,
saying,
you're
like,
putting your makeup on in the van, you're eating your lunch in the van, you're, talking on the phone, and I mean, it all happens in that we really are close with our photographers because you're paired with them. I mean, within a foot of each other all day long for 9 hours. And you get to know their families and their kids and their quirks and like when somebody really needs to go to the bathroom
Right.
and it's emergency status, we need to pull over.
Right.
And just all kinds of funny life stuff that you live with, between reporters and camera people, photographers, we
Yeah.
call them. And it is kind of a cool relationship. Like in the newsroom, those are the closest. Definitely, just because you spend so much time with one another, and you're sitting in the van on a stakeout or
Right.
whatever, and
Well, and the end product is they want something that looks good, and
Yeah.
they're
50% of your story.
Yeah, and your performance is gonna help what they shot be good.
Right, right. And they know the best video, and so they can kind of, tell you like, hey, there's this one like shot where I kind of pan from this thing to this thing, like you could write it like this, and it gives you great ideas, and you're like, oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
needed that kind of spot in that story for that. So that was a very true scene though, hairspray and makeup in the van. And then
key.
trying to see, what do they have? What are they doing? Because
Right.
if you're all, like if all the TV stations are parked on some scene and someone gets out of the van, I mean, 100% everyone else is watching where you go.
Oh.
Oh, are they going to go up? Are they going to knock on that neighbor's door? Oh, maybe I'll hang back. And a lot of people, you'll start seeing the other reporters get out of the van to follow somebody up to a house and be like,
okay.
oh, I don't want to get you to get something I don't have.
Right.
And it is just kind of funny. It is competitive in that way.
So funny. Then there's the TV reporters verbally sparring with the newspaper people.
Oh, what's your hurry? Television's always in a hurry. That's why they make so many mistakes. Have no fear. TV's here.
Well, here come the mannequins. You're coming to find out where the nonfiction is?
What you got?
Oh, this is really nice, Morosini. Where'd you get this? The Chicago Fire?
Oh, I don't have to look pretty. I work for a newspaper.
19th century journalism.
It's probably less of a thing now. Do you see newspaper reporters out on the stories as well?
Oh, sure, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Do they have vans, or they ride bikes, or rickshaws, or
ride bikes.
horses?
I think I just shot some snot at when you said that. They drive cars.
Okay.
And I mean, they're just, they're more mobile than us because they can just pick up and go,
Doesn't
and they
matter,
have
yeah.
a longer deadline than us.
Sure.
I mean, they're putting everything, online first too, but yeah, of course you see, Willamette Week and KXL Radio and Oregonian and stuff.
Excuse me, sir, that's the rules. I gotta frisk you.
No, thanks. Never mind. It's fine.
Then we have Reeves returning to the news station, and the guard lady lifts him off the ground and slams him
That's
down.
impressive.
So it's more amazing physicality by Reeves.
Who is the little man with the hat?
Oh, I don't know.
Do you know? I recognize him from something.
Oh, okay.
But he's just kind of a random guy.
Super
that's like
random, and he's
in
always
the lobby.
in the lobby.
But that's kind of true. Is because sometimes we'll
Is
have
it?
viewers show up, or like
You
regulars.
guys don't have a gate or something?
Oh yeah, we have a lot of
I was
security.
gonna say, because we've been to a couple stations, and we were always impressed by the security.
Yeah.
That's involved, and we didn't
Especially
understand
these
until we got a tour, and saw some of the, warning photos and things of people posted around, and realized the serious nature of
Yeah, there's definitely like stalkers style.
I mean, that's the
people
dangerous
going.
side, I think, of like when you're putting yourself out there in any capacity, is that anyone can listen or see it, and
And it's
with-
just kind of how much of yourself do you share?
Sure.
Online with,
Yeah.
they want us to be accessible and relatable and
Right.
normal and whatever. And I want to, of course I want to be like that too.
Yeah.
And hopefully I come across that way. But it is like, okay, how much of yourself do you give up? Do you show pictures of your kids?
Right.
Do you show pictures
We
only
had
behind? I mean, it's a
Yeah.
kind of a decision you have to make.
2 years we had our child completely headless in all photos, to the point where people were asking us very concerned ways of like, is your daughter okay? And then at a certain point, because we were out in the public so much, we figured it's it's fine.
But you don't really share her name or anything.
We don't
right?
share her name. She has a hashtag.
And I don't do that either.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's a huge deal, but it's just one thing that I can control, of
Exactly.
like, I don't want everyone to have that, or
Well, and
nobody needs it.
If pictures are posted because we're at different restaurants or whatnot, and it's like you can't really control that. I don't want to be a person that's you didn't, it's just an innocent picture of our kid playing with their kid or whatever it is. So we were just, then that education piece we talked about earlier comes into play, to be like,
it's a learning curve.
make sure you can see us, and
Right.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from. Every shot of the listeners in this so there's a sequence where everyone's listening to the news as they're going to go up to the airing of I think Ike's pardon, not the pardon, I don't remember exactly, but it goes through and shows different people and how they're ingesting the news, and it shows a family around a table, it shows a man in a bathtub. It's a procession of shots, and I thought it was a very lovely shorthanded way to kind of show like, some people are listening, some people are watching, it's just all the different ways that people ingest the news.
Right.
And it's just
just the demographics.
Yeah.
Of
Oh,
people
everyone's
who can
different.
all kind of come together and be interested in one topic.
I think the families like maybe not native English speaking. It's such a wide variety in a short period of shots that I thought was really great.
Yeah, it is. And that was actually helpful to watch. I mean, just to be reminded, like, your audience is everybody.
Yeah.
all
I'm
walks of life.
constantly reminded when I'm doing tabling at an event of like 20,000 people, and people very different than me will come up and they'll start sampling things, and just the commonality of food, and it's totally great. And I walk away, and then the next time I see them, they bring their like best friend or their mother or kid or whatever, and it's like, oh, that's right. Like we're all very different, and yet all pretty
and they're all your
similar.
customer,
Yeah. Then Kathleen Turner delivers an amazing speech, like a huge moving speech where I'd imagine any reporter would be like, that's the speech I'd love to deliver and be remembered forever. Like, she nails it. And then it's again immediately followed by humor, which is so interesting, because like I had like goosebumps by like how powerful Kathleen Turner is, and she's just like, she calls someone an asshole, and like, I mean, it's just really lays into him, and then she's just hilarious. And then we have Ned Beatty just losing his mind, and he's angry eating, angry hitting balloons.
God, he was awful.
Yeah.
Like, the stuff that you could tell
he almost says the C word.
Yes, multiple. Well, he just hates women.
And it's
in
he
this
does
movie.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, there's no question there. And I think that there's an interesting sort of backbone to this movie, that you could say it's like a romantic comedy, only it's really light in the romance. And I think ultimately is the story of a woman who knows what she wants to do, and she's going to do it regardless. It doesn't matter if she gets with Reeves or with Burt Reynolds. That felt a little tacked on. But I think it's really just about that she's going to do what she's going to do. And if someone offers her the kept life like Christopher Reeves offered her, ultimately she knows that she can't do that.
Yeah.
She's a force to be reckoned with. And she's
and
not
it's
going to
at the end when she says, like she knows she can make a difference doing this. Versus, some bubbly morning show or something.
Yeah, or talk to entertainment people, which he describes as like the worst people in existence. Which I think, side note, David Letterman's talk show was very enjoyable, but his guests were always, Mark Ruffalo talking about Incredible Hulk or whatever. That's a dated one, but now he does a show on Netflix where he's interviewing people and it's on his own terms and he's not trying to sell the latest movie or whatever.
And it's so much more impactful see it like that,
It's fascinating. I watch interviews with people I have no interest in, and just to watch them be sort of just normal versions of themselves in a way. They don't have to push a new album or something. It's just really interesting, the difference in those conversations.
And that's kind of, what news is going to, I think. Like the traditional newscast of how you were just saying about David Letterman. They have 3 minutes or 4 minutes for this. Here's the thing that they're promoting. Like, ask them about this. They're going to tell some canned funny story about this and time. And you don't really, you're like, okay, well, that's fine. But having longer time, being able to dive deeper. And, even, that's why podcasts are so popular now, and it's just a new way a more thoughtful way to get information, and that's kind of what we're trying to evolve to for we're changing our 6 o'clock news pretty drastically here pretty soon, where you're going to see more longer form stories, more investigative deep dives, and we're cutting out the house fire and the car crash and whatever.
Right.
You'll still probably see that at 5 o'clock and maybe for 2 minutes at 6. But it's going to be, much more. Reporters will have 3 days to put together a story versus 1 day. And, it may be on a topic that's, newsworthy that week, but they'll have, 2 or 3 days to put it together and really make it, with graphics on the screen and more user friendly and just kind of a deeper dive. Because I think, we just don't respect people. We haven't a lot, and just here's 20 seconds of this, okay, let's move on to this, and blah blah blah, and it's just garbage, you know. And so I think if you can really dumb it or take it down to a couple topics in a half hour and really do a good job on something that is a big issue, and get people to talk about it online and debate about it, that it's more impactful. I don't know. We're trying to do that.
It's like a deeper, richer version,
You better bring him down the stairs right now. I want a nice look. Hey! I won't be able to see a thing. You don't have to. You're the writer.
Then the subtext of the film, where the cameras roll up and the reporters are jockeying for position of the first live execution, is pretty brutal satire, where they're just like, I want to get this angle, and da-da-da-da, and it's like you're talking about someone being killed on TV.
Are we rolling?
Yes, we're rolling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first execution ever opened to our free and uncensored press.
And then, of course, there's so much power to these cameras that it shorts the electricity.
I know, it's ridiculous.
And
I know, I was rolling my eyes. But you know what? I worked down in Sacramento, and I worked there before the moratorium on the death penalty in California. And you could sign up. There was a media sheet to go sit in the room to witness. You couldn't bring a camera in, but you could witness it and come back out and report on it. And many of my colleagues in the newsroom at my station in Sacramento had seen a lethal injection. It's heavy, obviously. There was a serial rapist, I believe, who was next in line to get the death penalty. And, and they were creating a list of media members. And I, for some reason, got put on I said, okay, I'll go on the list.
Oh, gosh.
right, like 2 days before, it was his case that sparked it, and it was Governor Schwarzenegger at the time, and they took this case to the state Supreme Court or something and had the moratorium be put into place like 2 days before he was going to be executed. And so I didn't witness it, and no one has since. But and
you
I
would have
often
gone?
I would have gone. Yeah, and now I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? Like, that is a brain tattoo that my husband calls them. Brain tattoo, like, you will have forever.
Oh, yeah. There's just a before that and an
yeah,
after
and so
that.
now, I mean, I'm so glad that I didn't,
Yeah.
you know, go and see that, and that, you know, they're debating it still.
I also feel like
it is a weird thing. Like, how do you sign up to be in that room and then come out and you describe on television what you saw?
I mean, also, it can only go one way, really. It's not like you're going to come out and be like, it was awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, you're kind of painting the scene. Okay, whose family members were in the room and what, you know, were they breaking down, and then they turn the lights off, or what? I mean, however, I can only imagine, you know, what goes on. But it is just, you would paint the picture of, okay, who was in there and what happens first, and but yeah, I mean, ugh,
yeah,
it's awful. So, but yeah, I mean, so that scene was like not far off.
Sure.
I mean, obviously this was all jokey in this movie, but yeah, I mean, they used to let so much stuff happen in California that they don't do now for media, which is just nuts.
Then there's the governor chasing Henry Gibson around with armed people just shooting things.
Okay, Roscoe, we know you're in there. Come on, boys, open it up.
Henry Gibson hides inside of the
photocopier
instead of a rollaway desk.
Hijinks ensue.
Oh, back and forth, rolling around. Wonderful copier elevator scene, and then the pardon happens.
You're an accessory after the fact, and you're going to jail.
The hell they are. He's pardoned, and you're pardoned, and you're pardoned, and you're not.
And he receives a full pardon, despite that he murdered somebody. And a day later, my wife was like, "So that movie we were watching," I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Don't you think it's weird that he was just fully pardoned outside of a courtroom?"
Thinking. I'm like, you don't just get out of jail. Like, yeah, you're off death row, but you still killed someone.
He'd escaped prison, murdered a police officer who was also a drug dealer, and then they were just like, "But you're pardoned, so there's no papers to sign or anything." They're just
and
like,
everyone was
free.
like, "This is totally justified."
So
like,
amazing.
Wait a second. Yeah, I did catch on to that. Like, he's not just free.
No.
Well, details.
Yeah,
you know?
It's the movies.
And Kathleen Turner ends up with
Burt Reynolds,
who she's meant to be with.
You're not gonna get sentimental on me, are you?
Oh, no.
Say, you love me and that stuff?
Not unless you do.
which
I want to go someplace nice
I mean,
this time, though.
yeah, I get. I mean, he's Burt Reynolds. You can't argue either way. Christopher Reeve or Burt Reynolds. I mean, they both have flaws in the film. That brings us to the end of Switching Channels. Do you have any final thoughts on the movie before we move to final questions?
Final thoughts on the movie. I did enjoy it. It made me laugh out loud several times, but yes, there were some weird moments for sure.
Yeah. Will you be telling other reporters or anchors about Switching Channels?
I should. Because I remember the Network, right? That wasn't the old movie.
That's the old one. That's the Mad as Hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
And then, I mean, there was the HBO show. The
Network,
yes, right?
I think so. I didn't have
Jeff Bridges.
Yes,
it was like a CNN style.
I didn't have that.
I
that
liked
channel,
that.
So
that was good. I don't know.
But it's more serious.
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of like to choose something with some levity when there's things that are serious, so we don't just sit the whole time and talk about death.
And and some weird
and
like
just
serious
Christopher
moments.
Reeve's hair, and there's a wicked tank top he's wearing in one scene where I'm just like, that's barely a shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is a good day like for an anchor / reporter?
A good day.
It's 2 a.m.
Yeah, keep that in mind. You've had coffee. A good day is probably having a clean show, we call it. So no glaring, mistakes that, the viewer would notice. I mean, there's always little things that we're like, oh, that didn't roll right or whatever, but you wouldn't notice it on air.
Yeah.
Having a clean show, having, stuff happen, like having a live presence somewhere, or, being able to break in with some interesting news and have it go smoothly, and having some moments of levity like you were talking about. This morning, the corpse flower bloomed in Vancouver, so we had live fun shots of that. And but we had some other serious, stories that we got on, and just having a clean show is like, okay, we did a good job today, high five. And doing a good story, like anchors can be, we're all reporters really, but doing a good story and feeling good about, giving respect to the person that you're covering.
Sure.
And just feeling like, I got all the main points in there, and it was fun to watch or interesting to watch for the viewer is a good feeling when you're done writing something. You're like, this is pretty good. I like it.
And what is a bad day like for an anchor?
Mess ups on the air. You didn't read your copy, and you didn't see that a word was missing, and so you stumble. That's always embarrassing. If it's something,
serious.
Something serious or something bad, that's not good.
Probably not as bad if you're talking about like a cheese festival, but if it's like somebody's passed away or something.
Yeah.
You don't want to say their name wrong.
I don't know. Or missing deadline, missing your slot, we call it. Like if you're a reporter in the field and you're just rushing to edit something, and they're like, this airs in 2 minutes because we have to feed everything back in real time as it airs. Sometimes we can actually like FTP it back. And it misses that slot, and then it causes a whole bunch of problems back in the newsroom if they got to move the next story up because you weren't there. And you get a little talking to from the boss when that happens, so that's not a good day.
Get called into Burt Reynolds' office.
Yeah, or if some kind of like technical glitch happens and you lose the video that you just did the interview with the guy, and those are not good days. Or you get beat on a story. That sucks.
Oh yeah.
Like you'd made calls, you didn't hear anything back, or you went and knocked on the door when they went out to get a sandwich, and then the next channel comes and they're home and they get this great exclusive interview, and you're like, no. And then the boss is like, what happened? How come you didn't get that? And it's like, well, luck of that. Some days you win and some days you lose.
Yeah. Are there favorite things you have about being an anchor?
I think it's just exciting to, present, I don't know, like, just talk to people, I mean, even though, like we were saying, everything is kind of automated in our studio, we have no camera people anymore.
Right. Yeah.
It's all robotics from a control room. It's fun to still, I mean, you can still think of, people are out there.
Yeah.
Everyone gets so, like, confused when I do a public appearance or I am seeing an event and there's hundreds of people, sitting at some tables at the art museum. I mean, I get super nervous.
Sure.
I don't like it.
Everyone does.
But they're like, well, you're on TV. What's the difference? I'm like, yeah, but there's nobody there. And I'm just looking into a black hole of nothing, And so you really just try and kind of imagine your viewer, and in that way, you can kind of separate yourself and be more yourself, because you're like, oh, nobody's watching this.
Right.
Even though they are. You hope. And so it's fun to it's something new every day, and you can kind of ad-lib and just hone your skills, at being a better ad-libber. Is that a thing?
Sure.
I don't know.
Using those improv skills.
Yes, it is. It is improv skills for sure.
Do you have any advice for someone who's perhaps interested in being an anchor or reporter? Do you have to go the college route, or are there people that infiltrate their way in?
Not anymore. Gosh, It is. I mean, it used to be really required, and now, I think you really ultimately just, like I was saying, like to write, are a good listener, and because everyone will roll their eyes and hate you if you make it about you, and if, I have to be on camera always, and I have to insert my opinion, or, well, not your opinion on certain things, but insert yourself somehow always into the story is a real no-no, and other TV people will, I mean, the good ones will just be like, ugh, it's gross. But yeah, I like to write and be curious about things, and because there's still such good storytelling that people want to watch, you're just kind of doing it in a different format. And I mean, all the young people now these days, man, it's so easy to make a great Instagram video or Instagram stories, text on the screen, music. I mean, we have so many apps at our fingertips. We're all storytellers, we're all able to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think, I mean, gosh, they probably know better than me, like how to make a cool, compelling video, about something to put online. And that's really where it's headed, is just, digital first. And when something big news breaks, like hopefully they trust you enough on digital to turn your TV channel on when it does come to the television portion of it. So, but I think just be curious and want to tell stories.
A lot of work.
Yeah, and a lot of it is, I mean, we're going back to like when you first start in a small TV market. I mean, it's called one-man band. Now they call it like multi-skilled journalist or something, which same thing.
Just do everything.
You're doing the camera work, you're carrying the tripod, you're doing the interviews and making sure that their face is still in the viewfinder, and then you're doing the editing, and you still have to do as many versions as everybody else who's working with 2 people. And it's a grind. I mean, it's hard. And then once you got up to, a Portland size market, we're number 23 out of like 210 in the country, that, you would always be working with a photographer and an editor. And now we're hiring almost only multi-skilled journalists, one-man bands. The cameras are a lot lighter, they're smaller.
Sure.
But still, I mean, some stories, and we always make sure to pair up somebody, like if they're doing a story on the homeless crisis or on the Springwater Trail, where safety would be an issue if you're alone.
Yeah.
We always would pair them up with another person to go out on. But it is, you got to be fast at all that stuff. Editing and writing and everything. But, kids these days, they're quick at it.
And this brings me to my final question, my favorite question. Nina, what are your dreams like?
My dreams when I go to sleep? I don't know. Like, what are my aspirations for this job? That's the beauty of the question.
Yeah.
I see. That's a good one. What are my dreams like? I sleep hard these days, man, Dirk. I just try and go to bed as early as I can to get up at 2 a.m.
So no work dreams then?
I used to have work dreams,
but not
when
anymore.
Technical problems. The video would be lost, or like the scripts wouldn't print. Yes, I used to have work dreams constantly.
But not anymore. That's good.
Yeah. So I've lost that.
No anxiety dreams.
Yeah, KGW is such a great professional place. Like, I had that in my first market in Bend, when you were literally like running the teleprompter with your foot and producing it and anchoring, and there was a house fire and I had to run out and get it, and you're doing everything, and you're just so stressed out that you'd have like work dreams. But knock on wood, I don't do that anymore.
Right.
I don't know. Now I'm just like worried about raising a human.
Yes. Balancing that with a career.
Right, I know.
Yeah.
It is scary, but she thinks it's kind of cool. She sees me on TV every once in a while. Mama? And she'll look up, and if we're watching the news, she's like, Mama friends? Mama friends? I'm like, yeah, those are my friends. So she thinks it's kind of, she doesn't get it yet.
I love that.
Yeah, it's pretty cute.
Well, Nina, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching Switching Channels.
I loved it. Thank you for having me watch Switching Channels. I'd never seen it.
And thank you for listening. You can find me at vh.us.com, and I'll see you next time when I have a different guest. We talk about a different movie and a different profession.